Hi everyone, and welcome to today's review of Clannad. Please be aware that I received review code for this game, however no money has changed hands. Thus, all opinions are my own. Clannad is a visual novel by Key that was originally released in 2004. Following a successful Kickstarter, Sakai Project recently released the game in English on Steam. Clannad is definitely one of those visual novels that's considered a classic. At the time of its release, it was the best-selling PC game in Japan, and it generated multiple types of spin-offs, including multiple anime series, multiple manga series, and even spin-off games. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's talk about what a visual novel actually is. Now, obviously, the name visual novel kind of gives away what it is. It's a novel that includes visuals, but it also includes music, sound effects, typically voice acting, and it usually involves a choose-your-own-adventure style of interactivity. Of course, as the genre has evolved over time, many other features have been explored. Some games include RPG elements, dungeon exploring, mini-games, you name it. Clannad itself, though, is a very traditional form of this kind of game. You go through the story, and then you choose options when it gives you the choice to do so. These options will lead to different branching story paths that can lead you to multiple endings. Now, this game specifically has a true ending, which can only be achieved if the player chooses the right path. It's highly likely that players will see the other endings before they achieve the true ending, but it's fairly typical for players of this genre to try to go for all of the endings anyway. Visual novels have been a popular genre in Japan, however they never really caught on in the West until recently. As a fan of this type of game, it's actually kind of exciting to see so many of them coming out now. There's many to be found on Jast and Manga Gamer, and even just looking through Steam, there's just so many. And they haven't been relegated to digital downloads either. A bunch have gotten official releases on consoles and handhelds, and there seems to be more and more as time goes on. I'm not exactly sure why this genre is suddenly catching on now, but with classics like Clannad coming out, I'm certainly not complaining. How about official releases of the Type Moon games, guys? It's also worth noting that when this genre was a little more niche, most of the titles that we got were titles intended for adults, but now we're getting tons of games that don't include any erotic content at all. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with these adult-oriented games. Plenty of them are a lot of fun. For various reasons. But there was always kind of an obvious reason that those would come out and nothing else would. But I guess now that the West has had a taste of the visual novel, they just can't get enough. Or something. Anyways, getting back to Clannad, if you're unfamiliar with the game, you might be wondering, well, what is it about? I mean, that kind of is the most important part, right? Being a novel and all. Well, it kinda has your typical anime setup, in that the main character is a high school kid, and the game details his exploits at school. What makes it a little different, though, is the fact that the main character is completely disinterested in school, and is really kind of a loner with a tragic backstory. However, during the course of the game, he starts to make connections with other people, ultimately leading to situations that are really quite moving. Characters that just make brief appearances at first really build into these relatable characters. And I'll be honest when I say that some of the scenarios in this game really made me tear up. This game definitely pulls no punches when it comes to giving you feels. A big part of the enjoyment you'll get out of this type of game really comes from the translation, and I definitely have to give them kudos here. The dialogue feels natural and not stilted like some translations can be, and I didn't notice any intrusive in-jokes or memes added to the game. They even went so far as to give you an encyclopedia to fill you in on any of the Japanese terms or references they use in the game. As with most games of this genre, the voice acting has been left in its original Japanese format. Interestingly, the game was originally released with no voice acting at all. However, a fully voiced version was released in 2008, and this is the version that we got in English. While I know some Western gamers aren't very interested in games that only include the Japanese voice acting, I have the feeling that the people who enjoyed this genre are the type that prefer the Japanese, so leaving it as is was definitely the right decision. One thing that people really notice with games by Key is the art style, and this is definitely an aspect that can make or break a visual novel for people. While Key's characters are very unique and very recognizable, it's definitely not an art style that appeals to everybody. The characters all have really large eyes, and they also have mouths that tend to be very close to their noses, so they tend to come off as really goofy to some people. Since you're going to be looking at this art for many hours, it's definitely an aspect you need to be comfortable with in order to play this one. And last but not least, let's talk about the music. This is an aspect of the game I don't think too many people will be disappointed with. The music is, in a word, great. It always fits the mood, and to be upfront about it, this is a soundtrack I actually listen to on a regular basis. It's basically impossible to knock the music in this game. The only thing I can really think of is that there aren't that many tracks and they do repeat themselves. But really thinking about it, I never found any of the songs annoying. And if they had added more, it might have felt too crowded, and the potential for not so great tracks might have increased. So yeah, let's just say, absolutely no complaints on the music front. So should you give this one a shot? Well, if you're into visual novels, and the art style doesn't just send you running for the hills, then you really should have bought this one already. Like, what are you even doing? Are you even a fan? But seriously, go pick this one up. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll listen to the soundtrack while crying into your hug pillow. It's in English, it's on Steam. Go buy it. Hey guys, thanks for checking out my video. If you liked it, please hit like and subscribe to get more. Don't forget to check me out on Twitter and Facebook, as well as my live streams on Hitbox. Big shout out goes to all my patrons at Patreon. If you'd like to support me in making more videos, please hit that link on the screen. Bye bye!